guys, welcome to my little paintbrush. At our studio, we are celebrating May 4th, and so today we get to paint the Mandalorian, which for you, that may or may not be Star Wars related. For us it is, so we're just gonna dive right into it and have a good time. This is my version, inspired by, of course, the show and lots of art out there. I want you to remember that you're painting your version. So if you want to add or take away some things, if you feel like certain things aren't accurate, that's okay. You can do this however you want. Just have a good time with it. Take the pressure off of it being perfect and enjoy creating with me today. Remember, you can pause and rewind this tutorial. So if I'm painting too fast for you, please don't rush to keep up with me. Just pause. You can even step away if you get too tired, do half the painting today, half tomorrow. This is a pretty detailed piece, so you might kind of get tired midway through the painting, and that's fine too. The biggest thing is that you're happy with your art when you're finished with it and that you had a good time with it. So keep those two things in mind and let's get started. I'm going to grab a big flat and I'm going to get it wet in some clean water. And we're going to start with our background, which is a play on like a sunset and desert climate, okay? So we've got a palette just full of all the things. I'm hoping I can keep my palette clean today. I know I'm going to be in and out of all these colors. Let's go ahead and grab some white and go over to our orange. We're going to be playing a lot in our orange and yellow for this background. I want to go a little bit lighter. I'm going to pull in some yellow as well. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go through and quickly do this background. And the reason we're going to go fast is because with acrylic paint, you have to blend while your paint is wet. Once it dries, you can't get a good blend, and then you sort of have to redo those steps again, re-wet your surface. So I'm going to move pretty quickly. Again, this is one of those things that if you need to stop, if you need to pause, go ahead. All right, here we go. So we're going to brush with this light color, and we're going to go horizontally. We always encourage our artists to wrap their canvas, so if you are painting with a wrapped canvas today, go ahead and do that. Now this bright orange happened because I just put a little extra orange on my brush. That's all that happened there. And I like to do that as I go through this background. I like to every once in a while just go into my orange or my yellow and mix it up a little bit, okay? I'm going to continue this process. Now I'm going to have to go in to my image a little bit, okay? And notice that I kind of brush inward, okay? I don't want to fill the image with my sunset happening, but I'm gonna have to kind of go into it slightly. Now I want to pop a little orange right here, so I'm gonna go a little heavy on the orange, and I'm gonna be doing that. I want pops of color to happen throughout as I'm brushing down. Okay. Anytime that you're like, oh, I want to pop a color, whatever color that is, if it's orange or whatever, pop it on there. Now, you want to keep those horizontal brush strokes, and that's one reason that if you've got to go into your image, your characters a little bit, you can do that. See how I'm trying to avoid it too much. I want to still see them. And if you're using our paint kit, your image is on there in such a way that you should be able to still see it. And you can see, I can still see my lines. If you've drawn your image on yourself, a good tip is just to use like a graphite pencil and just put more pressure on it so that you can see those lines. Okay, now I'm going to do a little more orangey happening right here. Again, I know I'm going to have to brush in a little bit, but you can see I'm trying to avoid too much of that. And as I go, I'm just like, oh, a little bit of orange. Okay, brighten up a section. And then I might do a little orange right here. See, I just kind of skipped that whole spot, and that's because I want to pop in some yellow there. Then over here I'll do some orange. Okay, and I'm just brushing in, trying not to do vertical brush strokes. Keep it kind of horizontal if I can. Okay, now these other spots I want to really play on the yellow, so I'm not going to wash my brush, but I am going to put some white on it, go over to my yellow. I'm not mixing, guys, I'm just kind of putting a big chunk on there, and then I'm coming to my canvas, and this is pretty yellow. You can see it's really bright, but the thing is I'm going to be blending it right here, and so it's going to tone it down a little bit. Okay, so if you're like, whoa, that's super yellow, you can also go into some white and just kind of mellow it out. But I'm going to brush up and down here to blend it all in. Okay, there we go. And just playing with it a little bit. So if you can't blend from yellow to orange very well, take whatever's on your brush and the orange section and just brush that corner of your brush, face it into the section you're not blending well. I hope that's making sense, and try that way. Okay, now we'll come over to this side, do the same thing. I just put a nice chunk. Maybe you'll be able to see my technique a little better on this side, but I'm just brushing into the Mandalorian here. Okay, and you can see right now it looks very stripy, so I'm going to go with the corner of my brush into that peachy orange and then take that and kind of start to blend. This is why you have to work quickly, you guys, because this is that drying process I told you about, that once it happens you can't really come back from. I want to darken that a little bit. Okay, so I'm moving fairly quickly to avoid that. Okay, but you can see it's a little bit more blended down here than it is up there. We got to do the same thing. Blend it in a little bit. Okay. And your brush, because you haven't washed it, is just going to offload different strokes of different colors. I like that. I think it's fun. Okay, all the way up. So we've got that look going for us that we want. We don't necessarily have to have it even on each side. We're just playing on that. If you want to lighten up sort of some up here, you can bring some light up there and just kind of just work your space is my biggest tip for any kind of blended sky background. Just keep working your space and don't be afraid to go back to it. I will say, I like how this is, so I'm going to leave it. I will say that if you keep brushing over a spot as it's trying to dry and you've been doing it too long, you'll start to pick up paint instead of lay it down. So be mindful of that and know when you need to just let it dry and then go back for another coat of paint. Okay, this looks fabulous. I'm done with my background, I think. Try and just make sure my strokes are pretty vertical or horizontal. Now, I am going to go right into Baby Yoda's robe. I'm not going to wash my brush because I'm going to use these colors that are in my brush anyway. I'm going to pull in some of this brown into some orange. Okay, so not all of my brown, but a good chunk of it. So what this is going to do is it's going to pull a very sort of rich brown here. And brown can tend to be quite shy and need multiple layers. To help that, I'm going to pull in a little bit of white too. Okay. And keep in mind that your paint will dry a shade or two darker on your canvas than it appears on your plate, so keep that in mind too. All right, adding some water to my paint, keeping that brown in. Now let's go over to Baby Yoda. Okay, now depending on, you know, how much paint you're laying down and depending on the weather and your space that you're painting, all the things, and the mix of your paint, you might need more layers than me for this step. So in the event that that happens and you're thinking, oh, I need another layer of brown, go ahead and pause the video like I said in the beginning and put another layer of brown in. Because of how warm it is in the room that I'm painting in, this is drying so fast and I'm kind of able to double up my layers as I go, and so I don't need to do an extra layer of paint. But like I said, that might be different for you. If it is, just let your first layer dry and then go back to it. Okay, so we've got that. I'm gonna wash my brush super good here. You can hear me swishing that around in my water. That's really important that you really swish, swish. You want to make bubbles. Your brush needs to be clean. Okay, now we have a different shade of brown. This is a sort of a burnt umber, I believe is what it's called. So this pulls in the rich red tones. This one does not. So we're going to grab some white, come over here, and we are going to play in our burnt umber here for the Mandalorian. Now my Mandalorian is not wearing his full armor, okay? You're definitely welcome to paint that in if you want. I'm gonna grab just a touch of my rich brown and pull it in there too, but just a touch, okay? Just a little bit. And a little bit more white. Remember what I said, it's going to dry darker. So I want to go a little bit lighter. Okay, and then we'll just fill this in. Same thing as before. If you need multiple layers, which I'm guessing you're going to need, I did when I created this piece in different conditions than what I'm painting in right now. So my guess is you're going to need more layers. So just plan on pausing me a lot and putting your second coat of paint in. Get that shoulder. We also want there to be a difference, right, in our shades of brown from Baby Yoda to Mandalorian. And so that's another reason why we're kind of going to go into this little bit of a murkier brown. I don't really know how to describe it tonight. I can't think of my words. But see, our sunset, our background went in there a little bit, but we're able to cover it up pretty good. If it's still wet, you might have a bit of an issue and need to let it dry, but mine's dry, guys. The light's in here with the camera, drying everything super fast. Okay. Making some progress here on this. It's looking fantastic. I am going to put in some shading now before I move on. So I'm going to keep that in my brush, put a corner of that darker color that we were playing with, that burnt umber color, brush it through on my plate a few times, okay? And then we're just going to go along the edge here of our Mandalorian. See that darker edge? We're just gonna follow Mandalorian. We're gonna go down this strap too, because it's gonna create a little shadow as it rests there across his chest. Okay. Then we've got kind of our shoulder line here. We're gonna put in. Okay, maybe you're just winging this today with me. Maybe you've got an image that you're working with. Maybe you're doing armor instead. Whatever it is, you know, we're just putting in those details. I've got another sort of strip here, just playing off of, you know, the different things happening on his clothes here, different wrinkles and other things going on. Okay, let's go over to right underneath here and shadow this as well. And this is nice because if we get any, we go out of our lines and get up there, it's just black, so we're safe there. Okay, and then we'll come down this side, looking at his arm over there. And then we'll just clarify this a little more by putting another stroke right there. If it's blending too much and you're losing the bold stroke of your brush and the color, then you just might want to wait for it to dry. Mine probably could have been a bit more dry, but we got it in there, so calling it good. Okay, this is coming right along. We're going to go into our helmet now. I know I'm just moving, so you guys take your time, okay? The helmet is not going to be straight on gray. We're going to play with our browns a little bit. So I'm going to keep, again, I don't need to wash my brush. I'm going to make this sort of pile of white over here that's got a little bit of everything in it. I'm going to add a touch of black to that. Notice it was a touch of black, you guys, the smallest bit. And then I'm going to come over to this brown, okay? And I'm going to play on this color. See how it goes from a very bluish, cool tone of gray to a little bit of warmth happens with that brown, okay? That's what we want. We might need to pull in some more white. Once again, it's gonna dry darker. I can't tell you enough how many times I have painted and thought, oh crap, that's too dark once it dries, okay? So veer on the side of lighter and make enough that you can use it as many times as you need to and not have to go back to it. All right, so now we're gonna fill in our helmet. Now I do not want to lose, oopsie, some of these pencil lines. This helmet is so iconic at this point, right? And I don't want to not have it look exactly the way that it needs to look. So I'm gonna kind of be careful. If I'm painting along and I feel like, oh, I lost that line, I might come over here and just make sure that I paint in such a way that I can remember that that's where it goes. Get as close to the edge as you can without overwhelming yourself, because we are going to add some details that will help with that later. Now I'm going to paint a little bit thinner as I come over here, again for the sake of not losing my lines. So you might not be able to see it very clearly, but if I just brush my paint on a little thinner, around my lines, I will keep those lines and be able to see them. Just kind of holding my breath for a minute sometimes. Sometimes I do that. Okay, so now this will be black, but these sections right here will be this color. So it's nice when you're working with something that's going to end up black, because you can really go into it, you know, without the stress of messing something up, because the black will cover it up. So I just kind of get a little relaxed with these parts and not stress too much about where the paint's landing. So this little section right here needs to be this color too. And again, I'm not going to stress because everything around this little section will be black. Now this little part has quite a bit of orange in it, so I might need to add another layer. Not sure yet, but let's let that helmet dry for a minute and let's make Baby Yoda's color here. I'm going to go ahead and switch now to a medium flat to have a little bit more control. I'm going to get it wet and we're going to make this color. This is going to be different for everybody. Again, keep that in mind. So here we go. I'm going to grab a nice pile of yellow and just move it over here. And then a touch of green. And you can see it was like a touch of green. It does not take a lot of green to turn this yellow into this limey green. Okay, now I want to pull in some white because I don't want it super, super, super limey. I want to mellow it out a little bit. I might add a little bit more green. The green is going to pull more of that bluish tone to it. The more green you add, you're going to veer into those sort of cooler tones. There we go. And no shame in just messing with it for a minute until you're like, yep, that's my Baby Yoda. And for you, that might be completely different than my Baby Yoda. Notice how I just kind of twist my brush to get everything off there. Okay. I think that's good. And I want to make sure again that I have enough. And then let's go ahead and fill this in. This is going to be another one of those moments where you're going to need another coat of paint, and I'm not necessarily. So, you know, or maybe it's going on really thick for you and drying fast for you too, and you're fine. Whatever the case may be, work according to what's happening in your space today. Okay, we've got this ear. Pull it out there. And I'm actually going to do another coat, I think, because I've got this, well, here we go. I'm questioning myself over and over. Yeah, see, that's already dry, so I can already go up and sort of get rid of that orange background that came in. I love the green that pops because we have a lot of warmth happening in this piece, and then you have that cool green color that just kind of adds a lot of contrast that I like. Now, before I move on, I'm going to give my Baby Yoda a little shadow like I did in the Mandalorian. I'm going to load with that green and then a touch of that on one corner of my brush, blend it in quite a bit. And then start to go around here. You can see we're just adding nice bit of a pop around. Now this green by itself is just going to be way too much. That's why I take it, put it on my brush, and then I brush through a few times. It mixes into all those other shades on my brush right now, so that when I take it to my canvas, it's not too harsh of that sort of turquoisey look to it, okay? And we're gonna go off to the corner of this ear as far as we can. Kind of on the toe of our brush there a little bit. And then we're just gonna kind of bring a little bit of a shadow around here. Okay, looking good. If you can't get that turquoise look to go away, just mix some of this dark green and yellow and just make a darker shade of that limey cool color. And try doing that, and that might help you get that edge that you want if this is turning a little bit too turquoise for you. All right, I'm going to rinse out my brush, and we're going to work on the inside of this ear a little bit, and it's kind of going to blend a little bit in the background because we're going to use the same tones. We've got that color of the robe here, and I'm going to bring some white and mix that white into the color of Baby Yoda's robe. Not all of it, I'm going to need some of it. I might do a little more orange. Okay, and then we'll take that, and it almost turns into a nice tan color here. And we might need to lighten it up, okay? Again, once you put that paint on your canvas, you can really be able to start to tell whether or not it's going to be too dark or too light. And it always surprises me once it hits the canvas. It's kind of like painting a room in your house, and you have your little swatch and you think it's the perfect color, and then you put it on your wall and it's like, whoa, that's not what I expected. That's what happens to me when I'm filling in that. So after I do that, I'm going to grab just a little bit of this robe color, and while it's wet, I'm going to brush it in. Okay, so I'm just brushing from the base here. I just want to go about halfway, and I want it to kind of fade. So I want the majority of that dark to happen towards the inner ear here. That's where we would have that shadow happening. Okay, and so just lightly, like a feather on your cheek, kind of brush that in. Okay? All right, let's wash our brush out. Making some good progress here. Let's go into our robe again and kind of add some shadow. I'm sticking with my smaller flat right now, so I'm going to load it with the robe color, and then a corner of that dark brown that we've been mixing. And I'm just going to take that dark edge, and I'm going to begin what I've done on the Mandalorian's robe as well, or his clothes. So I'm just going to take that edge and create this darkness that kind of helps that stand out. So just kind of stick to those those lines that you have, and then we will have to kind of freehand some in as well, but it's not as intimidating as you might think. Okay, so we'll come down. This is a great time to clean up edges too, and notice I flatten my bristles. That gives me a nice clean edge to work with. Okay. I like this. Okay, now we've got some additional lines. Like I said, we're going to put those in, just using that edge again. And we've got kind of a little arm happening here. Okay, so just follow the Mandalorian's shoulder and then stop and come out like that. And then we've got some other little creases that we're going to do right here, kind of that sort of crease into his like side. Then we'll do another one right underneath. We're just indicating some movement happening in his robe. And then we've got just a little detail that we'll put right in there. Can you even believe it? It's amazing to me how this comes together. Okay, so let's focus a little bit on this strap here. Why we've got that brown in our brush, because we're just going to go to that, just that straight dark brown. And it's been sitting here on my plate. It's tightening up a little bit, so I got to loosen it. And this section will be this brown here. Okay, and again, anytime you come to the edge of your canvas, consider wrapping that edge. So we've got that's brown, and we've got this section here, that's brown. So this isn't the brown of Baby Yoda's robe. This is the darker brown that we just shadowed around Baby Yoda's robe, okay? Oh, that's supposed to be black. Okay, ignore that. This is supposed to be black. This will be brown. It's a good thing it's supposed to be black, because our black paint will just cover that right up. So this little piece right here is brown. If you're following me to the T and you're right with me, don't worry too much about that. In fact, what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and paint it brown so we can still see our lines. And we'll just go over it with some black. Anyway, I was saying this isn't the color of the robe, although it's looking a little bit like that right now. That's just our first layer. For our second one, we're going to mix a little bit of this darker brown with some of this reddish brown, okay? And deepen it a little bit, okay? You can even add a touch of black to it, just a touch though. Don't get too crazy with it, but it'll just give you a deeper brown. And then when we go in with that second layer, you'll be able to see pretty clearly that it is not the same shade. And that's really something I focused on with this piece, was trying not to have, working with all these browns, trying to switch them up for each individual component here of this painting. So you will learn from this all the things you can create with all the different shades you can create with brown. Again, we'll just paint right through that. It's actually easier than painting around it. We'll come back and put that in black. Got that in there. Okay, so we'll kind of give our strap a minute to dry. And I think it's time we go back to our helmet for a little bit. So I'm gonna wash my brush here. We are going to tackle the helmet, which can be kind of intimidating because it's iconic at this point, and so we put just tons of pressure on ourselves. So we're gonna try and eliminate that pressure a little bit. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a nice gray, some black and white, just a nice deep charcoaly color. You can even play on that brown a little bit and bring a scoop of it over here because we did the same thing with the color of our helmet, so we can do that again. Okay, then you're gonna wash your brush, and we're gonna begin the process of shading in our helmet. And this is gonna take you a little bit of time, and it's gonna cause probably a little bit of frustration. So if you get tired with it, just take a break from it and come back to it, okay? Don't feel like you have to do it all today, or just pause me and use the reference to, once you know the technique, to kind of figure it out, so that you don't feel too overwhelmed, okay? First, I'm going to get my helmet color on my brush, and I'm going to come back to this piece that I was a little concerned about in the beginning. I'm just going to make sure that it's the right color, because remember, it was fighting that background. Okay, and anywhere else that I feel might need another layer, I might just brush in real quick, but for the most part, we're good. All right, loosen up my paint, then corner into that darker charcoal color that we made, and we're gonna start up here, and we're gonna wrap that edge down, okay? Coming around here. Again, I am flattening my brush, using all my bristles. Come around with it, and I'll loop it back up, right? Because this is that headpiece that we've got to get as right as we can. So coming down again, darkening it up a little bit, loop around. Oops. Doing this on a really strange angle, so you can put this on your lap or on a flat surface if it helps. And then come back up around. Okay. Trying to get a nice kind of fades up there. So that's kind of tricky to get that using the flat of your brush. So you can go to the toe a little bit. Okay, so we've got that in there. We can come back to our helmet color and clean it up on this side if we need to. But what we want is for that to really stand out. Okay. Remember, this is a helmet, it's metal. If you see little strokes and streaks and everything, I guarantee you this is banged up a little bit. So just kind of go with that theory. All right, now we're going to come down this side with it, all the way down. I need to add some water to my brush, loosen it up. loosen up the paint here. And we're gonna go along the bottom edge there. And this is gonna meet it. Okay, if you feel like it got too strong, go back with your helmet color and blend it in a little more. Always options. Okay, then we've got this sort of half circle happening here. It's going to meet it down there, so let's go ahead and put that in. And see, I work things multiple times, not just once. I work my paint over and over and over again. Okay. Now here, I'm really going to try and give this effect of like worn out. So I'm going to brush some of this up and into my helmet, so it's not just these edges, but I'm scuffing up the helmet a bit. So just kind of brush that in. Create that effect. And we'll do the same thing over here on this one. Remember, it looks messy right now because we don't have that black in. And you'll be surprised at how much that black cleans this all up. So just have to kind of ignore it. But you see how we're just kind of brushing it in, scuffing it up a bit. Okay. Looking good. We'll come over here and we'll try and do a little definition over here without taking away the overall color, which is kind of tricky. We'll do our best. All right, now we've got a few more areas. We're going to come down along this line here. Kind of got in there, but that's okay. I come down along this base, and then we can go back in here and kind of redefine that a bit. Sometimes you have to do that because you're getting into your own space a little bit. So it's okay if you have to kind of go back, do some adjusting. All right, it's coming along. We've got a circle here that we need to do. So we're going to put in this circle, and it's got some little lines. So take that edge, put in that circle, and then come straight down. Right down to the base there. And carry it around on this other side as well. Lots of details on this helmet, but so cool once you've got it all in there. And then of course you can come through and add some additional scuff marks on this helmet if you want to. We'll come through with some highlights in a minute as well. Maybe you want to tone some of your colors down. Maybe you feel like it's too black. You can come through and kind of gray some of it out a little bit. Okay, like I said, we're going to get some lines in there and we're going to get the black in there and the highlights, and it'll all come together. Okay, let's go ahead and wash that out. Swishing it around. Let's go back to our strap here. Let's make sort of a yellowy, we want it to be a little more tan. So I mixed a little yellow, a little white. Okay, I just want a new color, and that color goes up in this section. Sort of like an off-white, if you will. That part is, and then this section right here is also that color. Kind of hard to get to. You're welcome to switch brushes for it. I'm still cleaning up my brown, so I don't feel the need to do that. But I'll get a little bit of this dark brown on there. And before I move on, I'll just kind of add some scuffies to this too. You know, these guys have to be scuffed up a little bit. Okay, so this is that darker brown again. It's not Baby Yoda's color, cloak color. All right, wash my brush. We are getting close to our detail work. Hope everyone's hanging in there. All right, let's go back to our little strap. I want to darken it slightly. I'm going to go in with a little bit of black and this brown here and just give myself a nice rich color. Okay, just kind of make sure it's the shade that I want. And then I'm going to put black on one edge of my brush, and I'm going to give a nice shadowed edge here around. That's why I said I still have some cleanup work to do, so I wasn't too concerned about getting any white in there when I did those other sections. So we'll do that in that section. Do it right here as well. Okay. And then up here, we'll just kind of give it a little brush and we'll come through and we'll do the same thing. We'll do some cleanup work. Okay. But for now, that's looking good. I'm going to dive right into my black now. Not going to wash my brush. It's time for that black. I love this part of the painting because I feel like I can clean up now, and I'm pretty OCD, so I need that cleanup work to happen. We're going to start back here on this wave cloak here. It's like a cape going on back here. Blowing in the wind. Okay, so just like that, that edge is just cleaned right up. Now this square that I accidentally filled in with brown, that's black, we'll go ahead and fill it in. Just like so. Again, turn your canvas around if you need to, if you can't reach these spots very well. And then you can just come in here and just get all of this cleaned up. That's the great thing about black. The only thing you have to be kind of concerned about is if you get too quick and too excited and going into all the other stuff that you've worked so hard at, because once this black is on there, it's a little bit more tricky to cover up. So you do want to keep that in mind, but other than that, it's nice to just clean it up. We obviously don't want to lose Baby Yoda, so I'm being very careful around the little face. We'll come into these little teeny areas that we can't really get with this brush in a minute, so just do the best you can with that for now. Okay, and now we're going to get into our headpiece here. Really focus in on these lines. I'm trying to get a good angle here. Nice and easy. I like to use my flat brush as long as I can for lots of reasons, but mostly it's a good way to avoid damaging smaller brushes, and it just leaves behind less brush strokes. So I try and use it as much as I can before I switch, but it can be tricky to get certain areas. So like right about now, I'm thinking that up here, I'll probably grab my detail brush. And those are just decisions that you as the artist can make to help your process. I'll probably go just that far, and then I'll switch to my detail brush. This is the smallest brush that you have, and I'll get it wet and I'll loosen up my black paint before I dive into my details. That's really important that your black paint is loose. You want like a melted ice cream consistency to your paint. And then I'll come up into this area of the helmet here and fill this portion in with this brush so that I feel a little bit more in control of it here, because it really gets tiny as it goes back into that little corner there. Okay. Now, while we have this black on our brush, we are going to get into some more details of our helmet. So make sure that paint is nice and loose, and let's just go for it. We're gonna start over here, and I'm not gonna outline my whole helmet. I just want to bring some awareness to certain parts of it. And clean up some edges a little bit, okay? So you'll see that I just sort of pick and choose areas that I want to pop a little bit, but I am not going to outline the whole thing. The areas that I do choose, though, are going to really be affected. The overall painting will be affected. Now I've got to do some lines here, which will be tricky, but just stick with me. We're going to do one that just kind of follows right along here, and then it shows up again back here. Okay, and then there's one that's basically right above it, going the same direction. Again, pops up again over there. Okay, so those are kind of tricky because they're freehand lines, but you can do it. Now we're going to follow this here, come around here, and just follow it straight down. I really want that to pop. Maybe you want some different things to pop in your Mandalorian piece. So if that's the case, you focus on those things. Or maybe there's some details that you want to add to this helmet, and you just go for it. And really stick to what you know and what you love. This is your piece. And come around here. And then we're going to come down this edge right here. Make that kind of pop a little bit. Then we'll do the same thing over here. All right. We've got some little lines here and here, just like so. And this is when you can take that detail brush and you can fill in those areas that I said might be bothering you. You can fill those in. Little spots that our bigger brush couldn't get. While we have this, we're going to outline our strap. It needs to be cleaned up a bit here. So we'll do some lines right through our strap. You can see that helps. We'll just outline our dark brown ones here. We're doing some cleanup work because there's so many details happening in this piece. And there's so many of the same neutral tones happening. So you got to kind of do that cleanup work. But it's looking awesome, and we are going to move to Baby Yoda, put some details in there, and then we're going to do some highlights, and you're done. So you are doing fantastic. If you're feeling exhausted at this point, there's no shame in taking a break and working on your piece tomorrow. I'm loosening up my burnt umber. So this is that darker brown color that we used on the Mandalorian's shirt area. Okay, I'm just loosening it up. It's kind of getting a little stiff. All right, now we're going to do some of those lines on Baby Yoda's face. But first, let's go ahead and put our eyebrows in. This will give us a nice placement. So first we're going to come pretty low and just kind of press in a little eyebrow here. And then we'll do another one. This will kind of come off the Mandalorian there. Okay, my baby Yoda is asleep. So I'm just gonna have like these little smiley face sort of shapes in there indicating sleep. And then we've got a little mouth that's closed here. And a little indication there. That nose. Okay, so pretty simple face. We didn't go crazy with the face. And then we're going to put these lines in. I'm going to start with my center line, and it's just going to come down pretty far. And then I've got another one there and another one here. And you can go through them again if you want them to darken up a little bit. I like to go pretty light with my first stroke so that I have an opportunity to fix it if I need to. Okay, now we're going to put a few lines in here like that, and then we're going to give just a little outline on Baby Yoda. In the ear a little bit. We really want to separate, of course, this ear because it's so close to our background color. And so we want to take the time to just indicate, hey, this is not part of our background. My brother said it looked like Baby Yoda's ear was on fire from blending into the background too much. So separate that a little bit so that it doesn't look that way. Let me just outline the top, just kind of bringing it all together. Okay. Oh, I can't believe how much we've done. I'm feeling a little sore, so I'm sure you guys are too. Let's just wrap it up with some highlights here. And these will go in pretty quick. I'm just going to get my medium brush and I'm going to give it a good rinse in some clean water. I want it to be dry or really clean, not dry. And then I just want to run my fingers down it, get most of the water out, but not all of it. I'll dip some of it in white paint like this. And then we're just going to have fun going through and just highlighting. And I tell you what, this does two things. It kind of scuffs them up a little bit more. They've been on all these crazy adventures here. But it also brightens this painting up so much that I say don't eliminate this particular step. I'm going to kind of go around that black portion. Come in Baby Yoda's ear. Anytime you're not getting just that nice kind of offload, faded sort of highlight look, and you're getting just a rough brush stroke, consider putting more water on your brush, just dampening it again. But I mean, look already, it just kind of, everything starts to pop, right? Go from very sort of neutral and dark to adding some light. I come along, maybe his forehead a little bit. Might even come down to the chin area. All right. Come over here. Just make sure you don't have a huge clump of white on your brush as you're starting off. That might scare you a little bit, you know, so just kind of start with a little bit then it'll dry pretty faded. When it's wet, it shines a little bit and makes you feel like you've really whitened out your whole painting, but don't worry about that. Put some here. I just love that it kind of makes it look, again, kind of scuffed up a little bit. We're going to do the same thing in the helmet. I'm going to go a little bit heavier on the helmet because I really want that sort of metal, that there's some shine to it, there's some glimmer happening. And of course it's scuffed up, so I'm going to just go a little heavier when I come into the helmet, and not be as afraid to brush more in and around my helmet than I did anywhere else. Really indicating some things have happened. I got a little bit in one of my black lines here, so I want to kind of bring that back like that. Come here in our circle, really just indicating that helmet look. It really brings a bit of that shine to it too. You can add it anywhere else your heart desires. I'm pretty satisfied with what I've got going on here. I think I'm ready for my signature, you guys. Wow. That was incredibly enjoyable to paint for me. I love to see a painting like this come together. I hope that you did too. Let's go ahead and sign our name. It's important that we own our artwork. We should be proud of it, especially a piece like this. I hope that this painting turned out the way that you had wanted it to. I hope that you put your own touch to these iconic characters. We love them so much. I would love to see your paintings. Tag us on social media, send them to us. We always love to see your spin on these pieces. Also, if you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any free content. And I hope to paint with you soon. Bye, guys.